With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inactive.
It's Irish.
It's Irish. It is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No,
Okay.
We Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Direct from the King Spring Studios in beautiful Smyrna, Georgia. This is a bunch of malarkey. Now, here's your host, the incredible Charlie McMahon.
Thank you to the legendary Hall of Fame radio personality, Scott Shannon, for that introduction. And thanks to all of you for tuning into yet another episode of A Bunch of Malarkey. Here we are 2 years later. This week marks our 2-year anniversary of the show. 2 years, 3 seasons, and this is our 94th episode. Where does the time go? Here we are, Season 3, Episode 29. Can you believe that? The show began on August 12th, 2018. The first season, well, it was a 20-episode season that ran from August through the end of 2018. Then, last year, 2019, 45 episodes, our first full season, and we are up to episode 29 this year. And thanks to all of you who have been here since the beginning. Thanks to all of you who have come on board at some point, and to all of our new listeners who seem to find the show somewhere each and every week. So thank you all so much for making A Bunch of Malarkey part of your week. I know routines right now are a little weird. People aren't driving to work as much anymore. People are working from home. Podcast listenership is way down around the country, but our numbers continue to stay steady in a very slightly upward trajectory. Our numbers have gone up every single month since we started the podcast, so I can't complain, but I owe that all to you. But 2 years, when I started this, it was just a little experiment. I said to my wife, I'm going to start a podcast, and she looked at me like, oh, another one of his project. I usually, if I do something, I put everything into it. I don't usually start something, do 1 or 2 episodes of something, and then abandon ship. I usually put everything I have into it, and I'd say that is the case for this, 94 episodes later. But when I initially did it, I thought I would get through, 20 episodes, and then, okay, I have nothing left to say. But I find that I have something to say every week. It's been a little tough this year, though, I have to admit. Ever since this pandemic started, it's been very difficult. Things aren't coming as naturally as they have in the past. Like, last year I'd go out with my friends or out to dinner, and something would happen which would trigger a memory from years ago. It would lead to an idea for a show. Now that I've been stuck at home, I have to really get creative on the topics, and it's tougher. And then I know all of you out there who listen, the pandemic's the big elephant in the room. You have your own safety and your family's safety on your mind. You have everything that's going on in the country and the world on your mind. So it's like, you can't be over the top here on the podcast because you don't want to discount what maybe you might be going through if you lost a job, or if your husband or wife lost their job, or are putting themselves on the line every day working at a hospital. But you do need an outlet, so that's why I continue to do these shows. I always say, when you stop listening, I'll stop doing this podcast. Now, the podcast, I'm not going to give anything away. It may change in the next few months as far as the frequency of shows. I'm thinking about cutting back to maybe every other week. I don't know yet. It's not in stone. I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe doing more video on our Facebook page or Instagram to supplement those in-between weeks. I'm not sure yet, but I think I want to engage more with you via video, maybe 10-minute shorts about different topics that are happening in the news or funny things. I think that might be the wave of the future for A Bunch of Malarkey. It's not going away. The podcast isn't going away. There's always going to be some sort of podcast for A Bunch of Malarkey. I'm thinking about expanding it to more video, 10-minute clips, maybe twice a week, and doing the actual full-length show every other week. Still haven't worked all that out yet. Plus, I have besides the radio station, which is taking up a lot of my time, I have another project, another idea in the works that I think is going to be a lot of fun. So a lot of things going on. Again, just thinking out loud. The podcast is not going off the air, but the format may change a little bit as far as the frequency of shows, and I may want to do more video with you, more engagement. People really seem to enjoy video as much, if not more, than audio, so we'll do a little bit of both, but the name A Bunch of Malarkey is not going away. The podcast is not going away. All the episodes that we've done aren't going away, and future episodes are not being canceled. The show is going to go on. It just may be a little bit different. I may mix it up. After 94 episodes, you get tired of kind of doing the same thing every week, so we may mix it up a bit. So that's where we stand as far as the show goes. But I thank all of you for 94 times I've sat and done this. It's hard to believe that 2 years have gone by, but so much has happened in the 2 years, right? This year alone seems like 5 years. But I thank all of you because you come back every week for the same malarkey, and I really appreciate it. We've covered so many topics, right? Lots of stories from my past and my childhood. I'm pretty open. I'm a pretty open book on here. And I always tell you the honest truth about what's happened. I'm not shameful of anything that's happened. Well, maybe I am. But I try to tell stories that you can all relate with, topics that you can all relate with. And I guess I'm doing something right to last 94 episodes and still have the numbers go up every month. So I really appreciate it. But it has been a lot tougher since this pandemic hit, trying to come up with topics that, again, are tasteful, but, not boring, but not over the top, but keeping in mind that you still are dealing with stuff. So it's been a lot harder. And I'm sure comedians in general and podcasters and the whole entertainment business is probably kind of confused right now. It's just uncharted territory. Who thought we'd ever be here? So I want to talk about one quick thing before we get into some of the bizarre stories that we always kick off the show with. Now, I don't spend as much time on Facebook and social media as I used to. I have to be honest, this radio station is taking up so much of my time. I'm on a daily schedule, and if something goes awry with that schedule, I find myself behind. I'm recording 50 hours a week on air, and I'm doing so much behind the scenes for the radio station, adding new songs, engaging with listeners who I hear from quite often through the Facebook and social media and email, different polls and interactive things on the Facebook page for the radio station. So I'm busy, and I don't have time to go on Facebook like I did before, but I do get a lot of my news from Facebook. I follow a lot of the news sites, and things come up, and I scroll past, a fire here, this happened, local, national, because I don't really want to put the TV on as much anymore because it's too fucking depressing. So last Sunday, I got up at a decent hour. I'm scrolling, and I saw that Wilford Brimley died. You know Wilford Brimley, actor. He was the oatmeal guy. I think he was on the diabetes commercials. Not a big celebrity, but, he was in his 80s, so it wasn't like he was a 30-year-old that tragically passed away. So I just scrolled past. Later on that morning, my wife says, "Oh, Wilford Brimley died." I said, "I know. I saw it this morning." "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "What?" You got to understand something about my wife. She'll know that a dog in Kennebunkport, Maine needs a foster home, but she won't know that, there was a major explosion in Beirut the other day. I don't know what the fuck is on her feed or what she has filtered out, but it's all dogs and squirrels eating broccoli or whatever the hell that was the other day. A groundhog eating broccoli. UPS guys with dogs on their route. She has all this shit on there, and she doesn't see the major news stories. So when she finally gets to the major news stories and I say, "I saw that yesterday," she'll get all angry with me. "Why didn't you tell me?" So I said last week, first of all, Wilford Brimley isn't a major celebrity. Like when Michael Jackson died, I called my wife at work and said, "Michael Jackson died," or Prince, or somebody big. I'm not going to announce to the house on a Sunday morning, "Ladies and gentlemen, canines, felines, Wilford Brimley has passed away." Not going to do it. It's Wilford Brimley. She got all mad at me. Again, she knows if a dog, a beagle in Bangor, Maine, needs a home. I asked, "Do you see the Beirut explosion?" "No." How do you go 2 days? You don't see that video of the explosion. But a collie out in California found his way home after a year. I don't get it. So that's my rant about the news. If I see something, unless it's major, I'm not going to announce it to my wife. Wilford Brimley. You kidding? Not that his life didn't matter. He's 80-something. It wasn't J-Lo. J-Lo dies, I might, not that I'm a J-Lo fan, but traumatic. No, like a big-name celebrity. That's when you announce, oh, my God, did you see? Or if a president gets shot, or, you don't announce Wilford Brimley's death. That's my rant. So last week, I told you all about these mystery seeds that were showing up in people's mailboxes from China. And people were told not to plant them. Like, you're going to run out. The shovel. Start planting Chinese seeds in your yard. Well, now people have received other quote-unquote suspicious items they didn't order. Until the government can fully figure out what is going on, officials said, don't use these items. There are packages of masks showing up. People are baffled why they're getting them. Somebody got a party whistle. It was a blue whistle. I don't know what the hell that story is all about. A blue circus type whistle showed up at someone's house. I'll tell you, if I get a kazoo, I'm playing that motherfucker. I don't care where it's from. I'm playing that kazoo. So they're telling people, don't put it in your mouth, don't touch it. I get a kazoo, I'm sanitizing that shit, I'm playing it. But whistles and sunglasses and all kinds of shit are showing up at people's houses from China, and nobody knows why. So are you paranoid about getting COVID to the point where you think you have to run your money, your paper money, through the washing machine or the microwave? Well, people are doing that in South Korea. Money laundering is never a good idea, as a South Korean found out when she put banknotes in a washing machine to remove traces or possible traces of corona. Officials say the loss was considerable. The person, who lives in Ansan City near Seoul, placed an unspecified amount of 50,000 won, which are $42 bills, in a washing machine. Some of the money was seriously damaged, and the person reached out to the Bank of Korea to find out whether it could be exchanged for new bills. Under bank rules on the exchange of damaged, mutilated, and contaminated banknotes, the person was provided with the new currency totaling about 23 million won, which is $19,300, the Bank of Korea said in a statement. The bank official said the number of 50,000 won bills the bank exchanged at half value was 507. So this person took a considerable loss. Other people are putting their money in the microwave and it's being set on fire, burning. Their central bank in South Korea has advised the public to avoid putting banknotes in a microwave, saying its disinfection effect is unclear. Antivirus guidelines in South Korea don't include sterilizing money in a washing machine either. So don't think about washing your money or putting it in the microwave. It's not going to work. This is what I mean. It's just, I wouldn't even think of that. They say it only lasts on a surface if it is on a surface for a short time anyway, so come on. Another mask dispute. This one resulted in a shootout in Pennsylvania. A Pennsylvania man has been charged with 31 crimes across 2 counties, including 7 counts of attempted murder on a police officer, after authorities say he fired an AK-47 at state troopers following a mask dispute at a cigar store. Sick fuck. Adam Michael Zaborowski, he's 35. He is also charged in Lehigh County with 7 counts of attempted homicide, 7 counts of aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm while prohibited. He was arrested Saturday, the day after the incident at the cigar store, by Slatington police officers and Pennsylvania state troopers. Zaborowski was shot by police after he opened fire on 6 state troopers and a Slatington police officer during a shootout near his home. He was He was flown by helicopter to St. Luke's University Hospital for treatment of wounds to his leg and buttocks. He's a white guy shooting police with an AK-47. He walks out with wounds on his buttocks. Black guy goes to the store and buys iced tea, ends up dead on the pavement. It doesn't make sense. So this guy went to a cigar store, right? I'm going to sum it up for you. They told him he had to wear a mask. He refused. They told him they would be happy to take his order and bring it out curbside for him, and he could pay and be on his way. And instead of complying, he stole 2 cigars and started walking out of the store. So one of the employees chased him out of the store. The guy pulled out a gun and started firing shots into the air, 3 shots into the air. His lawyer says the pandemic contributed to his alleged actions, that he's lost his job and he lost custody of his child and he wasn't dealing with it well. Come on. The pandemic's driving me crazy. I'm ready to kill everyone in this house, including my dogs. They're driving me up a fucking wall. But I'm restraining myself. This is what you do. You don't, you might think about it. You might think about putting the whole family in the freezer in the garage, but you hold back. So that's his excuse for this. So they went to his house. I guess they identified who he was through his license plate in the parking lot. They go to his house with a warrant. He comes out to go to his truck to try and get away, and then pulls out the machine gun, the AK-47, and starts firing at the police officers, who then just shoot him in the legs and the buttocks. A black guy pulls out a water gun, and he shot 100 times. This guy pulls out an AK-47, shoots at police, and he's got a bullet in his buttocks. But there's no systematic racism going on. You can't make it up. So what would you do? You're caught off guard. You don't have a gun or anything. You're caught off guard. Maybe you're at your home or your business, and somebody comes in with a machete. You're going to grab the closest thing to you to try and defend yourself, right? Well, the owner of a pizza shop did just that. He used his available resources to fend off a robbery attempt by a man with a machete in his store in Delaware. He threw a pizza at him. It happened Friday. The owner of Stargate Pizza in Greenwood, Delaware, he was closing down for the night. The owner told troopers that a man with a machete approached him demanding money. He told him he didn't have any money, and he threw a hot pizza at him, causing the machete-wielding man to flee in a car. The shop owner was not injured. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Delaware State Police. It is not known whether the pizza was disposed of. So you got to do what you got to do. Whatever's nearby. The guy said, I'm going to throw this pizza at him. And the guy ran. I don't know if I have a machete and you have a pizza, if I'm going to run. It worked, though. Now, one of my grandfather's favorite expressions growing up, when he went to a business that was mismanaged, he called it a Mickey Mouse operation. He said, what the hell are you running here, a Mickey Mouse operation? Everything was a Mickey Mouse operation, like Mickey and Goofy and the whole crew was running the place. Well, there really is a Mickey Mouse operation going on up in Providence, Rhode Island. Rhode Island mistakenly sent more than 175 state refund tax checks signed by Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse rather than the state treasurer and controller. You heard that right. They're running a real Mickey Mouse operation up there. The Rhode Island Division of Taxation uses signatures on test files, which were mistakenly printed on the real checks sent out on Monday. No other signature lines were printed besides Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney, said Jane Borgeson, Chief of Staff for the Rhode Island Department of Revenue, which includes their taxation division. The checks were tax refunds for corporate sales and tax credits, mostly to businesses. The tax division has voided out those checks and will issue new checks signed by the General Treasurer Seth Magaziner and State Controller Peter Keenan within a week. So if you have a Mickey Mouse or Walt Disney check, it's no good anymore. When I read that, I'm like, that's my grandfather. Everything was a Mickey Mouse. He would tell them that, too. They would advertise something on sale. We would go down there. He'd say, where's the lawnmower that's on sale? Oh, we're out of stock. You're running a real Mickey Mouse operation over here. I'm like, holy shit, it's a real Mickey Mouse operation. So let's go to Florida, where authorities took a man into custody on the Florida Turnpike near Boynton Beach after a video was captured on cell phone of a man hanging on to the hood of a semi-truck cruising down the interstate. Eric Morales said he and his girlfriend were heading north on the highway on Saturday when he witnessed the dangerous and surreal sight near the Turnpike's milepost 86. He said he saw a tractor-trailer swerving from the middle lane to the right lane to the left lane to the right, in and out, just crazy, up on two wheels at one time. According to the Florida Highway Patrol, they received a call about the wild ride at 1 p.m. Morales, who was on a road trip to his native New York at the time, said the situation turned violent just after he began recording the incident on a cell phone. He said he zoomed ahead of him and he saw a guy on the hood smashing the windshield with a flat bar, and he took out the driver's side window. The guy on the hood had blood all over his face. He was wearing only socks and underwear. Investigators said the man seen on the hood of the truck had gotten out of a vehicle on the southbound lanes near the Boynton Beach Boulevard exit and walked onto the highway. Morales said he and his girlfriend wanted to know the real reason behind the man's actions. He was screaming, "Call the police." Should we call the police? Morales' girlfriend is heard asking in the video. Troopers intercepted the truck near the 95 milepost. So this went on for miles. They took him down. He laid on his belly and put his hands down forward, and they grabbed him by his hands and yanked him onto the ground and put him in cuffs. The man was detained and transported to a nearby hospital for a mental evaluation. Apparently, this guy got out of a car going in the other direction, ran onto the highway, slowed traffic down enough to where he hopped on the hood of that semi and then started smashing the window. So, a fucked up guy. What do you want from Florida? I swear, and I'm starting to realize this, anybody we know that's moved down there, sorry Florida listeners, but you know it's true. Anybody who's moved down there, there's something in the fucking water, the air. It turns people fucking crazy when they move down there. I don't know what it is. Not that I'm not saying my state is way up there in the rankings. Don't get me wrong. But there's something going on down there. So if that doesn't springboard into our favorite segment, what the hell will?
A bunch of malarkey.
Mutant of the Week.
Now here's Charlie.
So last week, we had another landslide victory. The TikTok taunter, the guy who went on TikTok and taunted police, come get me, bitch, come arrest me, and then was captured. He beat the cartwheel caper, the guy who tried to elude police by doing cartwheels. It was a 92-8% victory. So our TikTok taunter is our mutant of the week until one of these two nominees steal the crown. Where do you vote? On our Facebook page, A Bunch of Malarkey. Poll goes up on Monday morning, ends on Friday morning, so you have 5 full days to vote. Tell a friend. Tell your family members. Tell everybody. Anybody who'll listen to you. Say, listen, motherfucker, you gotta vote in the Mutant of the Week poll. There's a share button. Come on, share it. Nobody's gonna think you're any more fucked up than they already think because you share a Mutant of the Week poll. Hit the share button. Takes 2 seconds. Share. Anyway, our first mutant nominee, we're going right back down to Florida, where else, where a man walked into a car dealership and left in a Porsche after paying with a check he printed on his home computer. You can't make this up. Casey William Kelly, he's 42. He was arrested on Wednesday for grand theft of a motor vehicle and uttering a false banknote. He also tried to buy Rolex watches with another bad check that he printed on his computer, according to an arrest report from the Walton County Sheriff's Office. During the investigation, it was determined that Kelly had purchased a Porsche 911 Turbo from a Porsche dealership in Destin by using a fraudulent check for $139,203.05. Who's not going to check this? The Porsche was then reported stolen to the county sheriff's office. The next day, Kelly presented a check in the amount of $61,521 to a jeweler in Miramar Beach in an attempt to purchase 3 Rolex watches. However, the jeweler kept the watches until it could be determined that the check was real and would cash. Thursday, it was reported that the check was a fugazi, fake. When arrested Wednesday afternoon, Kelly told investigators he printed out the cashier's checks from his home computer and did not get them from his bank. Kelly was transported and booked into the Walton County Jail without incident. He wasn't shot in the buttocks. So let's call him the Porsche Pirate. We all have porch pirates in our neighborhood. This guy is the Porsche Pirate out of Florida. Our second mutant nominee, we have to go back to my old stomping grounds of Long Island, New York, where a criminal defendant tried faking his death to avoid a jail sentence, but the phony death certificate his lawyer submitted had a glaring spelling error that made it a dead giveaway for fraud. Robert Berger of Huntington, New York, now faces additional time behind bars, up to 4 years if convicted in the alleged scheme. That's on top of pending sentences for his earlier guilty pleas to possession of a stolen Lexus and attempted grand larceny of a truck, punishment that prosecutors say he was looking to avoid. It will never cease to amaze me the lengths some people will go to avoid being held accountable on criminal charges, Nassau County District Attorney Madeline Singas said in a telephone interview on Tuesday. He was scheduled to be sentenced to a year in jail last October on the theft-related charges. Berger fled New York while taking steps to convince his then lawyer, prosecutors, and the judge that he had killed himself, including allegedly using his fiancée to pass along the bogus death certificate. At first glance, Berger's purported death certificate looked like an official document issued by the New Jersey Department of Health, Vital Statistics, and Registry. But there was one big problem. Registry was spelled Registry. There were also inconsistencies in the font type and size that raised suspicions. The real New Jersey Department of Health, Vital Statistics, and Registry confirmed that Berger's death certificate was a fake, a fugazi. He was arraigned by video because of the COVID-19 pandemic. He pled not guilty to a single count of offering a false instrument for filing. The judge set bail at $1, but ordered Berger back to jail because of his other charges. A message seeking comment was left with a public defender who took over Berger's case after the lawyer who submitted the suspicious death certificate said he'd been used as a pawn and had nothing to do with the alleged shenanigans. So let's call him the Fugazi Fatality. So we got two, forged documents this week. A guy who forged his own death certificate to avoid prosecution, the Fugazi Fatality, against a guy who printed checks to buy a Porsche and a watch and watches. The Porsche Pirate. So we got the Porsche Pirate and the Fugazi Fatality. Be sure to vote. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell everybody about the Mutant of the Week. Now, we're going to talk about a topic today. I was going to do a anniversary show like I did last year, but we don't want to rehash shit we already talked about. So it's going to be a regular episode with a regular topic because, right, I can do whatever the fuck I want on this podcast. Now, I thought it would be better. Who wants to rehash Marianne's ass in the hand blower and all the, you've heard it. Although I still wonder why her ass was in the hand blower. But anyway, why go back to one of the first episodes? I was messaging with my brother the other day. I don't know if you all know this, but I haven't spoken with my mom in 10 years. It's an ongoing thing. On again, off again. My sister hasn't spoken with her in even longer. I think my sister has spoken to my mom maybe 3 years in the last 25. My mom, she's got a lot of issues. Let's put it that way. Now, I was messaging with my brother the other day, and he told me that my mom got her electric bill. Now, it's the dead of summer in the South. They live in North Carolina. And my mom's electric bill was $92. She has a small senior apartment. Yeah, maybe high for a small one-bedroom apartment, but she runs the air conditioning all day. And if I remember, if she's running it like she did when I was a kid, that thing's like a fucking refrigerator. You can hang meat. My mother is crazy with the air conditioning because we never had it as little kids. So by the time we were teens and we finally got air conditioning, she didn't know what to fucking do with herself. So she used to put it on 60. We freeze our balls off. So she's probably cranking that thing, hanging sausage around the fucking apartment. I don't know what she's doing. But a bill came $92. Instead of just saying to herself, shit, I really used a lot of electric this month. I need to cut back, lower it a couple of degrees. She went on a rant to my brother that someone's tampering with her electrical box. All the electrical boxes in the state of North Carolina, they went and targeted her. She's the victim. And that's what today's topic is. People playing the victim card, the victim mentality. And this is something I grew up around all my life. And it's funny to a point, but it's a mental disorder. And unless you get help for it, you're never going to change. My mother has been the victim her whole life. She talks about all these victimizations. Every job she ever had, she was the victim. She was being treated unfairly. She was always the victim. So that's what we're going to talk about today, victim playing. It's also known as playing the victim card, the self-victimization. It's the fabrication or exaggeration of victimhood for a variety of reasons, such as to justify abuse of others, to manipulate others. It's a coping strategy, and it's an attention-seeking strategy. Now, for manipulation purposes, manipulators often play the victim role, like the woe is me, by portraying themselves as victims of circumstances or someone else's behavior in order to gain pity or sympathy or to evoke compassion and thereby get something from someone. Caring and conscientious people cannot stand to see someone suffering, and the manipulator often finds it easy and rewarding to play on sympathy to get cooperation for what they want to use you for. While portraying oneself as a victim can be highly successful in obtaining short-term goals, this method tends to be less successful over time. You end up alienating everybody, like in the case of my mom, but we'll get into all that. Victims' talent for high drama draws people to them like moths to a flame. Their permanent, dire state brings out the selfless motives in others. It's difficult to ignore constant cries for help. In most instances, however, the help given is of short duration. And like moths in a flame, helpers quickly get burned. Nothing seems to work to alleviate the victim's miserable situation. There is no movement for the better. Any efforts rescuers make are ignored, belittled, or met with hostility. No wonder that rescuers become increasingly frustrated and they walk away. Now, for abuse purposes, victim playing by abusers is either dehumanization, diverting attention away from acts of abuse by claiming that the abuse was justified based on another person's bad behavior, usually the real victim. Grooming for abusive power and control by soliciting sympathy from others in order to gain their assistance in supporting or enabling the abuse of a victim. It's known as proxy abuse. It's common for abusers to engage in victim playing, and this serves two purposes. First, justification to themselves as a way of dealing with the contradiction that results from inconsistencies between the way they treat others and what they believe about themselves. And it's a justification to others as a strategy of evading or deflecting harsh judgment or condemnation they may fear from others. So what is the victim mentality? I'm sure you've heard that before. Well, the victim mentality, it's a psychological term. It refers to a type of dysfunctional mindset which seeks to feel persecuted in order to gain attention or avoid self-responsibility. People who struggle with the victim mentality are convinced that life is not only beyond their control, but it is out to deliberately get them or hurt them. This belief results in constant blame, finger-pointing, and pity parties that are fueled by pessimism, fear, paranoia, and anger. To put it simply, having a victim mentality means that you blame other people and other circumstances for the unhappiness you feel in your life. Now let's go over the signs that someone you know may have this victim mentality or is playing the victim. The biggest sign is that they don't take responsibility. That's like the most classic sign of victim behavior. The victim, when I say victim, that's in quotes, just so you know. They're not really a victim. But the victim has trouble accepting they contributed to a problem and accepting responsibility for the circumstances that they're in. Instead, they point the finger or they ignore their role in perpetuating the problem. They are not overtly saying, I'm a victim, but instead indirectly sending the message that they're a martyr of sorts. Now, what's the remedy for this? Every circumstance, situation, and event in their life offers the victim an opportunity for growth. They may not completely be responsible for what has occurred, but they can always ask if they contributed somehow. It's self-reflection. Asking this question invites a person to be responsible, mature, and cooperative. Plus, it will help them avoid similar situations in the future. But try getting someone who plays this victim to do that. Number 2, they're frozen in their life. They're in this time warp. Victims believe that they are at the mercy of everyone and everything around them. Usually a victim will not make progress or advance in their life because they perceive that they are powerless. As a result, their life is stagnant. If you were to ask them why, they would respond maybe by giving you a laundry list of reasons why they are stuck. The real sticking point here is that the victim will not usually tell you what they plan to do about their lack of progress in their life. So what's the remedy here? The victim needs to see that small behaviors or changes in their attitude can bring them big rewards. They try to help the victim make a list of small, achievable steps they can take towards a goal in their life, maybe. Hold them accountable and ask them to hold themselves accountable also. Again, good luck. Another big one, and another one I can relate to so much. They hold grudges. The victim likes to hang on to old grudges. They bring up shit from 30 years ago, old grievances, old grudges. They carry these around like weapons just in case anyone ever tries to hold them accountable for something. The victim will bring up old memories and events in which they were probably legitimately hurt, but they use them as reasons why they can't make changes to their attitude, their life, or their circumstances in the present. These hurts and grudges underpin the victim's hobbled life. Now, what's the remedy here with these grudges? Well, this one's pretty simple. They have to let them go, but it's easier said than done. The victim needs to see that keeping grudges is only holding them down and not doing anything to help anyone else. Although the victim may not believe this, the victim needs to recognize that freeing others of blame is actually returning all the power and self-control back to the victim. So guess what? That means they are no longer the victim. But maybe that's the whole... It's a catch-22 here. Now, people who play the victim also have trouble being assertive. The victim does not truly believe they can control their own life, so they struggle to state what they need, what they desire, what they deserve. The victim's life will usually involve repeating patterns of submissiveness, I guess you could say. This pattern is detrimental to their self-esteem and to their personal development. The victim fails to break this pattern and suffers from potential anxiety or depressive disorders. Now, what's the remedy here? I guess a first recommendation is to seek help from a professional. Again, good luck getting them there to a counselor or a coach. It's also a chance for the victim to turn the direction of their life around, right? That's the best thing. It could also be beneficial for the victim to read a book on assertiveness. All they have to do is go to the library or Amazon. They have to learn to be assertive. And it's not a quick fix. It's going to take time, practice, learning, failing, and trying over and over. Victims also feel powerless. People who play the victim card. This could be like a shadow behavior, meaning that the victim does not outwardly show that they feel powerless. Instead, the victim, they're going to try to be manipulative and coercive and underhanded in getting what they need. We all probably have dealt with someone experiencing this kind of powerlessness. Usually the victim is someone that is suspicious of others, feels insecure, and is constantly needing to know the latest gossip. So what's the remedy here? Do not play the game with these people. Stay away from the game and sharing of gossip, listening to their stories of manipulation or their stories of insecurity. Let them know you're there to support them and listen to them, but not to contribute to their feeling of powerlessness. People who play the victim card, they don't trust anybody. The issue is not only a problem of not trusting others, it's a problem of the victim not believing they are trustworthy themselves. The victim makes the assumption that other people are exactly like them, untrustworthy. So what's the remedy? Examine the evidence. Are all people untrustworthy? Probably not. There are trustworthy people in the world. There are people that want to do what's best for you. There are people who want to help you. It's the job of the victim to begin revising their old assumptions about people. People who play the victim role, they also don't know when to say enough is enough. In relationships, victims have no sense of limits. They don't know when to say enough is enough. What's the remedy here? The victim needs to start creating their own boundaries. What's the maximum they're willing to take in a relationship or in any given situation? It's the responsibility of the victim to decide these boundaries for themselves. Another telltale sign of someone who plays the victim card or the victim role, they get into arguments so easily. The victim has trouble choosing their battles. To them, every battle is a war. To them, they're under attack all the time. So what's the remedy here? The victim needs to realize that there's a difference of opinion or a criticism, that it's not necessarily about them. It could very well be about the other person. The victim must recognize they have a choice over whether they allow themselves to uncritically enter into these petty arguments. Another telltale sign that someone's playing the victim card or the victim role is that they constantly feel sorry for themselves. Victims have a habit of pitying themselves. Their mirror reflects a defenseless child or weak person that cannot fend for themselves. Since other people do not usually show them sympathy or empathy, they try to give it to themselves, only to potentially appear immature to others. It further traps them in that victim role. So what's the remedy here? We have to recognize that all people have tough days. We all experience bad events. Even the luckiest people in the world experience unfortunate events. The victim must learn to avoid thinking that they are the only person in the world that has experienced sad, difficult, or unfair circumstances. We all go through it. Something we talk about a lot here on the show. Another telltale sign that someone's playing the victim role or the victim card is that they constantly compare themselves to others. The victim usually struggles with the habit of comparing themselves to others in a negative form. The truth is that we're all lacking in some respect compared to others. Let's be honest. Especially in an age of social media where people are only showing the good things in their lives. We feel inferior when we see all this stuff, but no one has it all. So what's the remedy here? The victim needs to change their view. The victim must recognize that they also have good qualities and have experienced privileges in their lives. You know, maybe they've not always been super lucky, but it's not all that bad. They also, the victim, the person playing the victim role, they always see their life as lacking. Even when something good happens, the victim will seek out what's lacking or missing. The victim will complain about complaining and then complain that they can't stop complaining. It's a deadly cycle. I always said if my mother won $5 million at the lottery, she'd bitch that she had to drive the ticket like 2 towns over, waste gas, go leave the house now, pain in the ass. The remedy here is that people have to count their blessings. The victim needs to kind of treasure these blessings and develop a new habit of being positive and optimistic. They should aim to be the most thankful and hopeful person they can be. Now, we all take things for granted. I do. We all do. But you can't complain about everything. You have to be thankful about some things. A person who plays the victim card, they're always a critic. Always. The victim has a need to put others down and find fault in everyone. By doing these things, they get a fleeting sense of superiority. So what's the remedy here? The victim should take all of that energy and use it to build other people up. It'll reflect on them in a positive way as well. The people who play the victim always think they're perfect. But ironically, when there's a chance that a victim could be caught in an error, they suddenly become perfect. This arrogance and narcissism closes the victim off from having truly trustworthy and cooperative relationships. So what's the remedy? They need to remove the word perfect from their vocabulary and accept that they are human and they're not perfect. In fact, the victim needs to realize that the more they own their mistakes and failings, the more others will gravitate towards them. Who does that remind you of? Guy sitting in the White House. A lot of these do. When I was researching all of this and thinking of different things myself, 2 people came to mind. My mom and the President of the United States. They share a lot of qualities. People who play the victim, they cut people out of their life. This is a big trait. I've seen this all my life. I've had it. They're out of my life. Cut them off. If you've heard that statement before, and it wasn't a reference to an actually dangerous or abusive situation, then you're probably dealing with someone playing the victim card. This statement was probably made in reference to everyday behaviors and relationship problems that the victim finds challenging. So instead of facing those challenges, they just cut you off. In response to this, their default strategy, just cut them off. This highly emotional behavior creates chaotic relationships. So what's the remedy? Breathe. Take a walk. Don't act hasty. But again, easier said than done. The victim needs to recognize that their pattern of cutting people off usually doesn't lead to the resolution of the problems or the conflict. You could take a different, more positive approach, such as letting people know their feelings instead. In the end, the victim will end up facing painful consequences in their life and relationships if they don't change their behavior. That's common sense, right? But as with most things in life, there are other options there. We just have to be willing to look for them and make a start. So what are a few more signs? I'm not going to drill too far down on that someone's playing the victim card. They feel attacked when they are given constructive criticism. Go right on the defensive. They feel attacked. You're attacking me. They also believe that everyone is better off than them. This is common in today's society. When you look at a news feed, like, for instance, you see an article that they're going to raise the unemployment benefit a few months ago to $600. The first reaction to a big cross-section of the population is, why should they get $600 when I'm going out to work every day? I don't even make that much. Or somebody gets a handout, they call it. There's going to be an increase in, SNAP benefits, or it's like whenever someone's getting something that they're not, people tend to get fucking crazy. People are doing better. They're getting something that they're not. Who gives a fuck? Do you think I sit home worrying about if SNAP benefits went up? Good for them. If they need it, good for them. This is what a big section of our population is. It's a big problem. Everyone's better off than them. People who play the victim love sharing their tragic, I put that in quotes, stories with other people, their misfortunes. They feast on it, telling people their misery. They love it. They have a habit of blaming, attacking, and accusing the people they supposedly love for how they feel all the time. They refuse to analyze themselves or improve their life. And the big one, this is a big one, they always one-up people when it comes to sharing traumatic experiences. My mom's an example. I have a cousin who's around my mom's age. They were friends for years. It's my dad's sister's daughter. My dad's sister was a lot older than him, so my dad's sister's daughter is close to my mom's age. They were friends for years, but my cousin got very sickly. And my mom's not in the best health. She has some issues. But every time my cousin would call my mom and say, and she's in bad shape, this woman. Bedridden, has arthritis all over her body. Yeah, not in the best situation. Nice lady, wonderful lady. But every time she would call my mom and say, I had to go to the hospital or this, my mom would have to one-up her. Well, my pain is the worst. Or if it was raining by your house, you would call my mom up and say, oh, was it raining today? Oh, you think you got rain? I was in a rowboat and it was 6 feet deep over here. It was always worse by her. Always one-upping you. And finally, this cousin, a couple of years ago, called my mom around Christmas time and they were talking and told my mom that her sister died. Now, my mom couldn't one-up death. You can't one-up death. Pain, yeah. How you feeling? Yeah. You can't one-up death. So my mother basically, I can't one-up her anymore. Her sister died. Never called her again. They haven't spoken in years. So another person my mom is cut off because my mom couldn't one-up her. I've been around this one-upping all my life. You know how many times I've called? When we lived in the western part of Long Island, one of my aunts lived out on the east end of Long Island. Anytime there would be a blizzard, they would talk on the phone. My mother would always say, the west end of Long Island gets it worse. It's not bad out there. Then my mother moved to the east end of Long Island a few years later. And I stayed in the west end. I moved out on my own. I would call her up. It's so bad. Oh, the east end gets it worse. We're worse. Anytime you would call her up with something, it was worse. It was worse. The whole conversation would be turned around. So you just give up after a while. So how do you deal with a person in your life who plays the victim? It's not easy. And my brother's going to get sainthood someday. Number one is you can't get sucked into those feelings. You have to remember that these so-called victims are unconsciously seeking attention and validation. However, when you grant them what they want, you're going to become emotionally entangled with them, which is bad for you and them. You have to be a passive listener without actively involving yourself in their pity party. They're going to look to you for sympathy as a way of reinforcing their victim mentality, but you can't give it to them. You have to remain neutral. You have to make it their problem. When the victim complex sufferers, they're going to find a way to pin blame and responsibility onto another person as a way of bypassing their own self-responsibility. They're also going to try to get you to agree with them to bolster their sense of feeling right. Instead of agreeing, express how much confidence you have in their ability to handle the situation as mature adults. Agree with them wholeheartedly. This practice uses a little bit of reverse psychology. Go along with their resistance completely so that you completely blow the problem out of proportion. So if this victim is saying how terrible their life is at the moment, you agree with them. You say, yeah, your life's a mess. It's terrible. It's horrendous. This tactic can cause the victim to change their tune, saying, well, it's not that bad, because now you're criticizing them in a roundabout way. So there's a little reverse psychology on the victim. Don't give them advice. The truth, the victims don't want to solve their problems because that would undermine their sense of being a victim. Therefore, giving advice to them is equivalent to talking to a wall. You're wasting your time. Victims seek, when they seek this advice and counsel, what they're really wanting is evidence that you care. The sad thing about victims is they confuse pity with love. So you might want to try practicing these pieces of advice, I guess you can say, and you'll find that the victim either starts taking responsibility for their life or seeks sympathy somewhere else. Either way, you won't have to be the victim's victim anymore. Don't forget that the victim complex it's a form of mental illness. Keep an open mind, compassionate heart, but don't be an enabler. The victim mentality and the victim complex are usually destructive forms of behavior, and they taint friendships and ruin relationships and destroy your self-esteem. You'll start questioning whether you're the bad person when you're around this all the time. It is a mental illness, and I've been around it all my life. I can remember being a little kid and my mother being the victim. It's tough. And then you start picking up on a little bit of this. There have been points in my life where I've picked up on this a little bit. But then you reach an age where you say, the reason I'm where I am in my life right now is because I fucked up, I made bad decisions, and you steer the ship in the right direction. It takes a lot more time. If you're not steering that ship in the right direction in your 20s and you get way off course, it takes a long time to get back on course, but at least you're doing it. You're taking stock in your life, but I've seen this my whole life in my family, and it's depressing, and I'm sure many of you that are listening have gone through it as well, and hopefully talking about it today will maybe a little advice or maybe just shedding some light on the issue. So where are we found? Come on, you know by now. Just to run it down real quick, we're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, Radio.com, Stitcher, CastBox, YouTube, Deezer, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, and we're on your Amazon Echo device. So whatever platform works best for you. We are glad you tune in to A Bunch of Malarkey, no matter what platform you may be listening on. Now, how do you get in touch with me? You can email me anytime at abunchofmalarkeypodshow@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Malarkey Pod Show, Instagram, A Bunch of Malarkey Podcast, and of course Facebook, where you vote for the Mutant of the Week. You can private message me there. Don't forget to vote for the Mutant of the Week. Who do we got this week again? We have the Fugazi Fatality, the guy who faked his own death with a Fugazi death certificate against the Porsche Pirate, the guy who printed a check and tried to buy a Porsche in Florida. So don't forget to vote. Now, if you want to become a sponsor or a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/abunchofmalarkey. Donate $1 a month, $2 a month, $3 a month. We have a few patrons, and I thank you all for your monthly sponsorship. The money goes a long way to I have to pay hosting costs. To get on all these platforms, I have to pay a company to export them and host our actual files. So that costs money, the printing, the equipment, all this kind of stuff. So every little bit helps. So $1, $2, $3 a month, whatever you can afford, a one-time donation, whatever you want to do. Patreon.com/a bunch of malarkey. I know times are tough for a lot of people, so I don't really push that. If you want to buy my book, it's still on sale. Still relevant. It may be 2 years old, but it's about stories of dealing with the public. Those never expire. A whole lot of shenanigans on Amazon. Head over there. It's available 2-day free Prime shipping if you're a Prime Amazon Prime member. If you want to listen to me on the radio and you like 80s music, I'm on Charlie's 80s Addict radio station Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. So a long time each day I'm on there. 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 hours a week. So you can find some time to come visit me over in Charlie's 80s Addict. That's available on the iHeartRadio and on the TuneIn radio apps. You can also visit us at charlies80saddict.com. And we're going to have an app coming out soon where you can it's our own personal app where you can listen to the radio station on its own app. So that'll be fun if you don't want to use any of those streaming services. So I want to thank everybody again for a great 2 years. August 12th is our 2-year anniversary. Again, 94 episodes, 3 seasons. And again, you can't do this kind of thing without the support of the listeners coming onto the social media pages, commenting, sharing things, making comments about what we talk about on the show, and just listening every week. A lot of people, they just want to listen to a podcast. They don't want to participate in polls and talking about it, and I get that because the numbers certainly don't reflect the social media participation, but it's a podcast, and I totally understand that. So if you just listen every week and carry about your business, that's great also. But those who come to the Facebook page and the different social media pages, I really appreciate it. And you can't do 94 episodes in 2 years and 3 seasons without a great listener base. So I have to thank each and every one of you because you can't do this kind of thing without great listeners. So I owe it all to you. And again, we may change a few things here and there, but the show's not going anywhere. We may, go every other week with some fun stuff in between. I don't know yet. We may stick with this. Really not sure where we're going, but I want to try something new. We're 94 episodes in. We're approaching 100 episodes. So I want to mix it up for you and for me to make it a little more fresh and new. So we may do some more video. We may do some other things. So I'm currently thinking about what we can do to change it, to make it a little bit more exciting and change with the times a little bit. Doing the same thing for 2 years might be getting old for you and for me. So we'll see where it goes in the next few bit. Maybe I'll even put up a poll, see what you guys think about, changing it up a bit, see what you guys are thinking. So, folks, if you're sitting home blaming everyone else for the difficulties in your life and are playing the victim card, you still have to beware because it's a shit show out there. Thank you so much for listening and for a great 2 years. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll catch you next week. Take care, everybody.